Hello, my name is Daniel and today I am taking the OEX Phoxx 2 version 2 tent up onto the ridge on the side of a windswept and rain-swept mountain to do a stress test. Now the Phoxx 2 tent is not an expensive product, it's a sub £100 tent. I am not expecting miracles, I am not expecting all the bells and whistles, but I'm really excited to find out how well it performs. Welcome to my new abode. Okay, that was not easy pitching that tent up in the wind. I was soaking wet, my bag was soaking wet, putting the tent out. That's one of those tents where you pitch the inner layer first. Fortunately, the outer layer does come pre-tied to that inner layer, so that made it a little bit easier. I mean, the tent didn't get quite as wet on the inside. I'm in, got a little bit of water coming in. Obviously when I open the door, that's just because of the shape of the tent. Fortunately, I brought my trusty towel with me and I've given it a few little wipe ups. I've had to rinse this outside the tent, but I'm in, I'm changed, dry clothes on. So far, the tent is keeping out of the wind and the rain. Now, I'll be honest with you here, I'm a little bit nervous about spending the night in this tent up here. As you can probably see from it blowing around behind me, it's absolutely howling out there. And I'm about a foot above sort of the watercourse at the moment. It's the only place that I could find. First off, this tent has two doors, one either side. Thank goodness, because with this wind, I think I'd be in trouble if I didn't have a choice of doors. So even though the wind is circulating around where I am, I've decided that that side is less windy, but it's handy being able to choose either side. Also, on either side of the door, there are two fairly narrow vestibule areas, which make storing items quite handy. But behind me at the back of the tent, I've got a few items. This is my bag, just about fits in there, rubbing up against the tent, but it just about fits in there. At the front, I've got my shoes and my bottle of filtered water there. There's a little bit of room down the back. I could probably fit another pair of shoes in there and maybe a couple of other items. I've got my little cooking stove down here. I was hoping that I'd be able to cook in this area, that maybe I'd be able to just open the door a little bit and get a stove going out here, but to be honest, it's so narrow and this is just blowing everywhere, it would just blow the stove over, and obviously a fire risk in there. So the vestibule isn't quite as wide as I thought it was going to be. You can see the poles here, they clip in and they're pegged in at the bottom down there. And remember earlier I said that the outer layer was tied to the inner layer. Have a look at this. That green layer is tied to the orange layer. Now you can undo those ties if you want and just put up the inner layer and then put the outer layer on almost like a tarp over the top, but it came pre-tied and it made it a little bit easier putting that tent up. Okay, so take a look at the front of the tent where my feet go. There is a little vent up the top and I've had to close this down on the other side to stop the wind blowing the rain in. So it's far too windy to get the stove on the go, even in the vestibule area. No way, just try turning the gas on and it's just going absolutely everywhere. So looks like I'm going to be eating cold Wayfarer peri-peri chicken. I think I'm too pessimistic sometimes because it's actually quite nice. Tastes like a spicy sort of sandwich filling. It's not bad at all. Crikey, that wind is really picking up out there. But it's full on get off force wind out there. So would you like to have another look outside? This is really windy up here. You know what, if this tent fails in the night, I'm going to have a very, very interesting palaver to deal with. Whew. That is the mattress blown up. Thermarest, Neo Air, or something like that. Being in this tent is like being in a wind tunnel. I'm not kidding you. This is what the tent looks like. Got a little bit of room on the left side, a little bit on the right side. So I'm 6'2" and I find that my toes are pressing up on the material at the end of the tent, and that's right where that little vent is. Wow, good morning troopers. I made it through the night, and so did the tent. That was a night of two halves. The first half of the night until about 3 AM it was absolutely howling with wind and rain, and from about 3 AM onwards just rain, not as much wind, a little bit breezy but nothing like it was. Sleep was on and off. The good news is the tent is still in one piece, nothing's broken, nothing's torn, and bone dry. I've had a good look around on the floor, not a drop has come in. So you saw all that rain, horizontal rain last night, none of it's come in, it's bone dry. It's like 7:45 in the morning or something, so I'm gonna have to get up, get this tent packed up and get down off this mountain. It's been an interesting night. Yeah, I was visited by some sheep during the night as well that seemed to sort of set up camp around the tent as well. It's still hammering with rain out there, and I'm really not looking forward to packing this tent up and having to walk down in the rain. Like, it's just so comfy in here in my, I don't know where you can see that, in my sleeping bag. Oh, it's so comfy, I don't want to get up, but I really need to shift into gear. So this is where my tent was, just in front of that big rock. So I've packed my tent up. It started raining just as I started dismantling the tent, typical. And I'm probably about a quarter of the way back to my car right now, and you get a real feel for how much rain there was last night. So what do I think of the OEX Phoxx 2 version 2 tent? The things that I liked about this tent was the colour. It wasn't olive green as it's shown on the internet listing. It's actually a dark green. That's fine. It looked quite stealthy to me. I also like the low profile. Having two doors, one either side, was really handy because one side of my tent was absolutely being battered by the wind. It was fairly easy to pitch the tent, even though it was one of those tents where you pitch the inner layer first. It was a very well ventilated tent, and of course it didn't leak or it didn't break. It took a real hammering last night. I mean, it was absolutely pouring down at one point. Not a single drop came into that tent when I was in it, and it was all zipped up. Okay, now we get to some of the things I didn't like about this tent. Okay, the vestibule area on either side of the tent, that little porch area, was really small. It was fine for putting in a bag and a few items, a pair of shoes, but it wasn't really big enough to do anything else. I did get a little bit of water coming into the tent when I was pitching it. It wasn't a horrendous amount of water getting in there because the outer layer is tied to the inner layer, but there was some water in there. Thankfully, I brought a tea towel along with me, and I did have to use that to give it a good mop up. Okay, as you saw in the footage, my little feet, well, not so little feet, are pretty cold. There's a vent at the end of that tent, and I'm 6'2", and my toes were literally touching that vent all night. I think the big question is that tent good value for money? And the truth is, for a sub £100 tent, I think that's absolutely fine. I can't imagine that tent giving you any problems on normal, you know, camping use. Because obviously where I've taken it out today is not normal. Okay, that's like a proper stress test today to see how well it performed. Look, if you found this review helpful, it's giving you some insights into this tent, please do hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. So look, thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again.